Hey runners, before we get into today's episode, I want to ask you a quick question. Have you ever wondered if your nutrition is actually helping your running or is it actually holding you back? If you want to find out, I've created a brand new free resource just for you. It's called the Runner's Fueling Audit. It's a super quick checklist that's going to help you spot the signs of underfueling, low energy availability, or where the gaps in your nutrition might be that are impacting your recovery and actually slowing you down. It only takes a few minutes to go through, and by the end, you're going to know whether or not your fueling is on the right track, or if you really need to start making some changes to the way you approach your eating so you can start to feel stronger on every run, reduce your injury risk, and actually get the results that you're training so hard for. You can grab your free copy right now by clicking on the link in the show notes. Again, this is called the Runner's Fueling Audit. It's a free downloadable resource, and it's going to give you so much clarity on how you can start fueling smarter and running stronger. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast. I, of course, am your host, Stephanie Natchuk, and I'm so glad that you decided to spend a little bit of time with me today, where we are answering the question, should you or can you fuel your runs with Coke? Now, of course, I mean Coca-Cola or some other similar beverage, pop, soda type beverage. I'm not talking about any kind of illicit substances. Whether or not you should fuel your runs with that, whole other topic that, falls a bit out of the realm of my scope as a dietitian here. But we're talking today about the, potential pros and cons of using something like a pop drink, as we call it in Canada, soda, for a lot of other people. There was a recent post that I had seen where a race course was serving Coke on the race course. And of course, there was a lot of very mixed comments, mixed reviews about whether or not this was the best thing that you have ever had when you're racing or the worst thing that you've ever had when you're racing, right? Very, very polarizing views on this. And not necessarily just whether or not you enjoy the taste of Coke and whether or not you like to drink Coke, but specifically, is this a good or bad idea as an intra-workout fuel source? I thought, oh, what a great question to kind of break down and talk about, because I think like a lot of things that we're seeing lately online, I've seen a lot of people talking about fueling with Pop-Tarts or fueling with candy, or, maybe something like drinking pop on a run. I am always in the camp of saving runners money wherever humanly possible, right? If there is a inexpensive swap or alternative to buying sports drinks or intra-run fuel products, right? Like, it is absolutely worth investigating and worth looking into. For example, like I was just at my local running store not that long ago, and I mean, I spent over $100 on just intra-run fuel. Now, of course, all of the stuff I bought is going to last me a little while, right? It's not like I'm going to burn through that in a week or something, but still, right? I mean, it's an investment, it's a commitment to be purchasing some of these products. And so if there's something else that we can buy that can save us, maybe a few $100s a year or something, I think that that's a great thing to look at and to investigate. So let's break it down for you today. We're going to start with talking about what are the nutrition facts specifically for Coca-Cola. So the carbohydrate breakdown of Coca-Cola is, and this is Canadian, so I don't know if this differs where you live in the world. This is specifically for Canadian Coca-Cola. You're looking at in a liter of Coke, which is 32 ounces, I believe, 32 fluid ounces for my American listeners. So in a liter, 1,000 mLs, you're getting 110 grams of carbohydrate, 96 milligrams of caffeine. So about the same caffeine in a cup of coffee as you would find in a liter of Coke, 80 milligrams of sodium per liter. So for context, that's in a liter, right, which would be the amount that you would reasonably be needing to consume in an hour, right, from a hydration perspective, like to meet your fluid requirements during a run. I like to talk about things in like, a liter, because that's how much plus or minus you would aim to be drinking over the course of an hour during a run, during a race. So in there, you're getting about a cup of coffee's worth of caffeine, which is, decent amount, like that's okay. Might be a lot for some people. and 80 milligrams of sodium, which is not a lot at all. So it's a very low amount of sodium per liter. The sugars specifically that are used in Coca-Cola here in Canada are a combination of glucose and fructose, which is actually great. Like, this is ideal, right? We are wanting a combination of glucose and fructose for maximal carbohydrate absorption in the GI tract. If we're consuming more than 60 grams of carbs per hour, which in this example we would be, more than 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour, we want to be consuming mixed carbohydrate sources. So different types of carbohydrates. We call this mixed transportable carbohydrates, MTC, not to be confused with MCT oil. MCT oil is medium chain triglyceride oil. MTC is mixed transportable carbohydrates. And I sometimes will say it wrong, but just so you know what I mean, talking about carbs in one, fats in the other. Anyway, we want to consume these mixed different types of sugars. Because what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of the different types of transporters we have in the digestive tract for different kinds of sugars, because we only have so much capacity to absorb a single type of sugar at a time, right? We only have so many transporters in the gut that can handle so much of one type of sugar. So if we mix the different types of sugars together and we are consuming different transportable carbohydrates, we're using different transporters in the gut. Now we can consume more overall carbohydrate per hour, which is a good thing, right? Allows us to get more energy to our working muscles. So let's compare that to Gatorade. So for example, Gatorade, now of course, there are 10,000 bajillion trillion sports drinks on the market, right? Everyone has a sport drink mix. They vary widely in terms of carbohydrate content. They vary widely in terms of the type of carbohydrate. So, like whether it's glucose, fructose, other types of new carbohydrates on the market, things like your clustered dextrin or your maltodextrins, or all of the other ones. Lots and lots of different things. New technology coming out all the time for different products that change the maybe the total amount of carbohydrate or the concentration of sugars and different aspects of the product. So, but I had to pick something. So I wanted to pick something that was very everyone knows what it is. Everyone's heard of Gatorade. Everyone's seen Gatorade. And like if you were, say, going to go for a run and you're walking into your local convenience store and you're like, I need something to fuel my run. What should I choose here at my local convenience store, right? You're going to see Gatorade or Powerade or something like that. You're going to see that and you're going to see Coca-Cola, right? So if we're comparing those two. Now, there's a lot of other things we could be comparing here, but I don't want to keep you here all day long comparing every single other sports drink on the market, because we would be here for quite literally the rest of our lives. So we'll compare to Gatorade. Gatorade has 61, again, this is Canada, 61 grams of carbs per liter. In a liter of Gatorade, you're getting 61 grams of carbohydrate, 860 milligrams of sodium, right? So a lot more sodium, right? 10 times, right? 10 times the sodium in the Gatorade compared to the cola. That was the Gatorade endurance formula specifically that I was looking at there. Gatorade had a lot of different products, even Gatorade, right? There's tons of different products they have on the market available in different places. This is the Gatorade endurance formula. Okay, kind of compare. Gatorade has a lot more sodium, right? A lot more electrolytes than the cola does. So that's one kind of, checking the Gatorade box. However, Coke has 2 times the carbs per liter compared to Gatorade, right? Twice the carb per liter compared to Gatorade, right? And you hear us sport dietitians, endurance dietitians, going on and on and on all the time about how we need to take in more fuel per hour, more fuel per hour. We got to get our fueling up, right? So if Coke has 2 times the carbs of Gatorade, is this like some incredible secret, right? Is this like, oh my gosh, how is no one telling me this? How is no one, shouting from the rooftops that like, you don't need to buy a sports drink, you can just fuel with Coke, right? Is this some like conspiracy to stop you from having this incredible cheap option? Not necessarily, unfortunately. I wish. There is another aspect to this that I want to just dive into a little bit. And it is a concept called osmolality. Osmolality. Gosh, like going back to my university chemistry days here. Okay. So osmolality is essentially a measure of the amount, the concentration of solutes, so sugar, electrolytes, etc., in a product. How concentrated, right? How much per liter? In this case, it's measured in milliosmoles per kilogram, but that specific little tidbit is kind of a side note. So something is considered isotonic, and maybe you've heard that word before, but something is considered isotonic when it is similar to the concentration of our bloodstream. So our bloodstream is in the 275 to 295 milliosmoles per kilogram range. And so it's the easiest for us to absorb fluids when they are isotonic fluids. So sports drinks, for example, that have a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, that are around that same isotonic range is the easiest for us to absorb those fluids. Now, the osmolality of Gatorade is about the one that I described to you there is about 330 milliosmoles per kilogram. So this makes it actually hypertonic, right? It is more concentrated, is a higher osmolality than an isotonic solution. So what this does is it actually increases the rate of the absorption of the carbohydrate. So the formula here, the goal is to actually get the carbs into your bloodstream as fast as possible, right? That's the purpose, and that's kind of the design of that sports drink. And of course, you can find lots of sports drinks that are marketed as isotonic. Therefore, they might be easier on our gut, easier on our digestive system, because when something is hypertonic, it actually has to pull some water into the gut to dilute it before it can be absorbed, right? So we get the rapid carbohydrate absorption, but it may actually cause some people to experience some GI side effects. And this is why there are some people who do not tolerate Gatorade. A very good friend of mine, a very good running friend of mine, I just can't drink Gatorade. She's a bit of a sensitive stomach and she just cannot do it with the Gatorade. I have no problem drinking Gatorade, and I will have that on runs sometimes, not all the time, but yeah, so we're all a little bit different with that, and depends on your level of gut training. So then, what is the osmolality of Coke? 492. So I saw some different studies, some different reports. The lowest that I could find, so it's at minimum 492 milliosmoles per kilogram. So it's a lot higher, right? Because it has double the carbohydrates per liter compared to Gatorade. The osmolality of it is also significantly higher than that of Gatorade. Now, why isn't it directly double? Well, because the electrolytes, right? There's a difference in the electrolytes, and those, of course, play a role in the osmolality as well. And the question is, well, if Coke is higher in sugar and also more concentrated, does that mean we're getting that fuel into our system even faster? And it doesn't. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Because what happens is when we're drinking a Coke, right, those very concentrated sugars, that very high osmolality, is actually going to pull more water into your GI tract to dilute it before it can be absorbed. So when we're running, this increases our risk for GI distress. This increases our risk for cramping. This increases our risk for just not, especially if we're already dehydrated, right? We don't have a lot of water to spare. That water is being redirected into the GI tract, or that Coke is just sitting there not being absorbed, and that also is putting us at risk for more gastrointestinal problems. So it in and of itself, because of that very high concentration, is not going to be our best option to be drinking on its own during a race or during a training run. As on its own as a standalone option, not my favorite. The other problem with it could be the carbonation. And this is going to vary from person to person. For me personally, anything carbonated is absolutely going to be a no-go. I can barely drink a carbonated beverage, just sitting around doing nothing. I can barely tolerate anything carbonated. I just the burping and the fullness and the blow, I can't do carbonation. I tried, there was an electrolyte brand, and they make a fizzy electrolyte product. And I tried it once I took one sip of this, and I was why? Why is this so fizzy? I just can't do it, right? But that might not bother everybody, right? That might not bother you. You might be able to drink a carbonated beverage, or maybe even enjoy a carbonated beverage during a run, right? And it doesn't bother you. You find it refreshing. You like the bubbles and whatever. So there's no harm in consuming a carbonated beverage on a run if it doesn't bother your gut, right? There's no there's nothing bad happening if you feel fine, if your gut is fine with it and tolerates it and you enjoy it. Like that's great, right? Some people might even choose to use like a flat Coke instead. Like they would just let the carbonation out and then they might drink it. So here's what I want to lay out for you next is like, how could you maybe fuel your runs with Coke if you wanted to, right? Maybe you really love the taste of it more so than other sports drinks. You can't find a sports drink that you enjoy, but you don't mind the taste of Coke. So you're like, well, if I need something, like, can I still sort of incorporate this? How do I do it? So yes, you can. But what I would do is I would suggest pairing it with a more hypotonic fluid. So have your Coke, right? This hypertonic concentrated carbohydrate, right? You can kind of think of it almost like a gel, right? Like you're almost looking at I don't know what the concentration of a gel is, like the osmolality off the top of my head. And I didn't look it up because I just thought of this as I was recording this episode. You kind of think of it like that, right? You're taking the gel, taking a few sips of the Coke, and then you're taking a few sips of your water or your more hypotonic sport drink, right? To kind of balance out that concentration in your stomach and avoid that very strong osmotic effect that can lead to the GI distress, right? So you can kind of go back and forth and include it with something else that's going to dilute it for you without you needing to pull water from the rest of your body in order to dilute it and then absorb it. So that would be my first tip is you can include it, but make sure you're pairing it with something else. Also, train with it. Right? Don't just do this for the first time on race day. If you're listening to this episode and your marathon is this weekend, you're like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. No. Next time. Try it next time. Do not do it for the first time in a new situation, right? Because the exact amount of Coke you can consume with how much water or another hypotonic fluid, right? Like this is going to take a little bit of back and forth trial and error, figure it out. To make sure that you are reaching your hourly fueling and hydration requirements, right? Both those are very, very important. And how does your gut do with it, right? Does your gut handle it well? Does it tolerate it well? Or is it going to cause you some issues, right? There's only one way to find out. And so I don't want you to find that out for the first time on race day. Another thing to keep in mind, another factor is that Coke is low in electrolytes. So for long events, or if you are a salty sweater and you want to use Coke as a fuel source, then definitely including another electrolyte source some way, somehow, whether it's in another fluid or you're taking electrolyte capsules, or maybe you're using another solid fuel source that is giving you those electrolytes, but just make sure you have that covered as well. So at the end of the day, can you fuel your runs with Coke? Yes, you can. However, there's a few kind of tips and sort of caveats to that, some things that I would consider and ways that I would make it a little bit easier and a little bit less risky in order to do that in a race situation. So that's it for today's episode. I would love to hear from you. Tell me what you think. Have you fueled with pop before on a run? Or what's the most random or kind of unexpected thing that you've used to fuel a run or a race? You can find me on Instagram at Steph the Runner's Dietitian and let me know what that is for you. And of course, if you are looking for some more help with your fueling strategy, if you are wanting to know, okay, maybe I don't want to fuel my runs with Coke, but what can I fuel my runs with? Steph, what should I eat before? What should I take in during? What should I eat after? How do I put together a nutrition plan, right? If you have all these questions about nutrition as a runner and you want some help, you want some strategy, I would love to help you. You can get my all new ebook for runners. It's called Fuel Smarter, Run Faster. It's available right now. It's only $27. You can get it at the link in the show notes, and it walks you through all of these wonderful things, all of these steps, pre-run, intra-run, post-run, how to fuel your entire day so that you reach your running, nutrition, and body composition goals, complete with an entire collection of recipes. I'm talking dozens and dozens and dozens of recipes for everything you can imagine. Breakfast, lunch, supper, snacks, my homemade sports drink recipe is in there, all of it. This is a great, great resource if you just want those first steps to understanding nutrition as a runner, that fueling strategy that you need to be successful. It's all there in the Fuel Smarter, Run Faster ebook. So go ahead and grab your copy right now. Like I said, it's only $27. The link is in the show notes. All right, that is it for this week's episode. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me today. This was a fun one to chat about, and I hope that we are able to do a little bit more of this breakdown of some specific products. You know, should you or shouldn't you use these to fuel your runs going forward? And of course, as always, we'll catch you right back here for next week's episode. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.